Pretty often people mention that they've never worked with custom post types or custom fields before. And it's one of the things inside WordPress that once I wrapped my mind around, I feel like I couldn't live without. It's such an integral part of my builds now. It's very rare that I build a site without them. But explaining exactly how custom post types and custom fields work can be hard to do inside of a group thread or through a quick explanation. It really takes a little bit of seeing how it works in action and seeing how easy it is to build these things out for it to really click. So my hope is that in this video, I can show you kind of a crash course on custom fields and custom post types. So hopefully it clicks for you. Now, what we're going to do in this video is run through a already completed example so I can show you a real world example of how it works and why it's so important to how this website functions. And then we're going to go back and build out basically the same thing, kind of a minimized version without any real design in it. We'll leave design for another day. But we're going to build out the functionality from the ground up, starting from installing the plugins. Now, it's only going to take us about 30 minutes to do. The concept is actually pretty simple. And I think once you wrap your mind around this, this is going to be something like me that you can't live without. So with that, let's dive in and take a look. All right, so the first thing I want to do is show you a real life example of how custom post types and custom fields can be so useful. So we actually use several of these on the admin bar's website. One here in particular is for events. So we host regular events like we did today. I did an interview with Kevin Powell, and we have other interviews, tutorials, those kinds of things. Now, all of these events kind of follow the same formula each time. They all have a title, they all have a date, they all have a YouTube video, etc. So if I were to just go create an individual page for each one of these, that would totally work. But let's say in the future, I want to change the color of the headline, for instance, on all of them. Well, if I created pages, I would have to go to each one of the individual pages and make those changes. If you have 2 or 3, that's not a huge deal, but if you have 30 or 40, that becomes a huge pain. Also, because it's a custom post type, we can actually query these posts, which is exactly what I'm doing here. You'll see this looks just like a post grid, but it's showing posts of this custom post type only. So you can see here, we have this query loop of all the posts. If we click into one, we have a single template that controls all of them. You'll see it has the title, an image, a subtitle, the date and time, the video, a description, etc. Now, if we went into a different event, you'll see it follows the exact same layout. Now, like I said, you could do this by creating individual pages for all these, but what happens when you want to make a change to all of them? Well, you have a big headache on your hands. But with the custom post type, you don't have that headache. For example, this here is created with a single post template in GenerateBlocks. I can go in here to this single post template and edit it. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do just that. I wanted to change the color of this headline. It's currently white, but let's say I wanted to make it yellow. I can change it to yellow in this template, update it. We'll go back here to the front end, and I could go to any one of these events, and now the title is yellow. It doesn't matter which one I go to because they're all being controlled by this single template. Of course, yellow looks terrible in that instance, in my opinion, so we're going to go ahead and change that back to white. And we'll update that. So I hope you can see right away that the idea of being able to control everything from one single template is huge. It's also nice that I can query everything the way I want. But what's really great about this is it makes creating new pages actually post, but creating new pages of content really easily. If we went in and edited this event, you would see we don't have the full editing experience you'd see normally when we're building a page with blocks. Instead, we have all these fields. These are the custom fields for this post type. So we have the title that goes up here in the title. We have the subtitle, the event date, the event times, an event description, a YouTube video, and I'm even using a custom taxonomy on here. All of these are custom fields that I set up for this post type. So what's great about this is it's really easy to create a new post. Let's say I had a new event that I needed to publish. I could just give this a title, new event. I could give it a subtitle. We'll just call this subtitle for new event. We'll say that it's going to be on May 22nd, and we'll say it'll be at 9 a.m. Go down here and give it a description. We'll just put in some website ipsum, and we'll just go ahead. I don't have to fill them all out. We'll hit publish. And as soon as I hit publish, I'm going to have an entirely new page created on the website. Again, technically a post. So if we open up this new event, we'll see that it's already just used this template and it's put in this content dynamically exactly where we need it. So this makes it really easy to create the new content for your website. Now, this is even easier if you have clients that are getting in and creating post on the website. They can go in and just essentially fill out fields in a form and hit publish, and boom, just like that, new content is created on the site. And it's really not just for these kinds of things. Sometimes you might be able to set this up on your service pages. So let's say you had a plumber that has emergency services, residential services, and commercial services. You could set up a services custom post type, put in all the fields you need for those, and then easily be able to create one template that manages the look and layout of all of those pages, and just fill in the fields on the back end to be able to create new services on the website. So now that you got an idea of how this works and why it's so valuable to have, let's jump in and take a look at exactly what it takes to get all of this set up all the way from scratch. We're going to start by installing plugins. So let's dive in and take a look. So what we have here is a fresh install of WordPress. I've installed GenerateBlocks, GenerateBlocks Pro. I have the GeneratePress theme running, and I'm using GeneratePress Premium. I have a small child theme installed, but I don't think we're going to need to touch any of that. I don't think it affects any of this. If it does, we'll go take a look at it. But really, these three tools are what you need to do this exactly how I'm going to do it today. Now, most of the popular page builders on the market have a system for working with custom fields and custom post types. Of course, I'm just going to be showing you with this setup today, but you can definitely go check out ways to do this if you use something else. All right, so the first thing we're going to need to do is go to Plugins, Add New, and we're going to search for CPT UI. And this is the custom post type plugin. We'll need to create our custom post types. We'll install this and we'll activate it. And now we'll go to Plugins, Add New again, and we're going to search for Advanced Custom Fields. Now there is a pro version of Advanced Custom Fields, but we won't need it for this. And if I'm honest, most of the time I don't end up needing the pro version, so the free version should do you just fine. Now with those two things installed, we can get started. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a custom post type. So over here, we now have this menu item for CPT UI. We'll hover over it and go to Add or Edit Post Types. So I think we'll just do something like you saw on the admin bars website with events, just so you have kind of the one-to-one correlation. But like I said, you could use this on any number of things, anything where you're going to have multiple posts that need to look the same. So it could be services pages, could be events, could be podcasts, could be testimonials. It could be a whole slew of things. So what we'll do here is add the the post type slug. So this is going to be what shows up in the URL. We'll just call that event. In the plural label, we're going to call this events, and then singular, we'll call it event. Now there are a bunch of settings here where you can do all kinds of advanced things. We're not going to need any of that this time, but it's worth learning what all those things do. We'll scroll down here to supports, and we're going to keep the title, but we're going to get rid of the editor and the featured image because we're going to handle all that with custom fields. So we can leave all the rest of these unchecked. Now you can also use the default categories and tags. Later, we're going to look at creating our own taxonomy, so we'll have to go back and add that separately. But for now, that's all we need to do. We'll go ahead and hit Add Post Type. And you can see over on the left-hand side, now we have this events post type. So we have all our events and Add New. If we click in here, obviously there's no events yet, which we'll be adding shortly. Just to show you before we add the custom fields, if we click that, all we have in here right now is a title. So we need to add all the fields we're going to need for this custom post type. To do that, we'll go to Custom Fields and we'll go to Field Groups and we're going to add New. So a field group can be multiple fields. They're just kind of grouped together for some kind of logical reason. What I'll usually do is create a field group for each custom post type. So in this, we'll just call this Events Fields. Now here in location, we want to change these custom fields to show up when the post type is equal to events, because that's the custom post type we just created. Now you might be creating something else, so you'll have to find yours from the drop-down list. We'll go ahead and hit publish on this just to save our progress. And now we need to add our fields. So in the admin bars example, we have about a dozen custom fields. In this, we'll just do 2 or 3 so you can get a hang of how it works, but we won't go into extreme detail just repeating the process over and over again. So we're already going to have the title from the name of our post, but one thing we might need is a subheading. So we'll call this first field label subheading, and we can in fact capitalize this. And then here in the field name is actually what it's going to use to query these fields. So this does have to be all lowercase, no spaces. You can use underscores or dashes if it's multiple words. Now here is the field type. There's lots of different field types to choose from, and there's even more if you get the pro version. In my experience, you're only going to be using a handful of them most of the time, and we're just going to use the most popular ones in this demo. So for the headline or the subheadline, all we need is text. So we'll just select the text field. We can decide if it's required or not. We can leave instructions. There's a bunch of extra stuff you can do, but for now, just these settings will get us enough. So we got the subheading field. We'll go ahead and hit add field again. And now we're going to add an image field. So we'll call this image. The field name will be image, and we'll change the type of field to image. Again, we can make it required, but we'll skip all that, and we'll add another field. And this one, we're going to call this description. And instead of text, we're going to go with the WYSIWYG editor because we might want to make this bold or italics or add headlines and stuff inside of it. So we're just going to go with the full WYSIWYG editor. Again, we could choose required. We can choose a lot of different settings. But that's what we're going to start out with for this one. So now we'll go ahead and hit update. And if we go over here to events, all events, we can add a new one. And before we just had the title, but now we have these custom fields we set up, one for subheading, one for image, and one for description. So just to get us started, we'll go ahead and put one dummy event in here now with all the data, and then we'll come back and add some more later. So we'll just call this event 1. We'll say event 1 subheading. We'll add an image. For this case, we'll just choose this image here. And for the description, I will put in some website Ipsum I have on my text expander. All right, now that that one's in here, we'll hit publish. If we go look at the front end of this post, you'll see all it's showing right now is the title, which is pulled in by default by my theme, but it's not showing all of our custom fields, and we don't have a good way to edit this yet. So what we need to do inside of GeneratePress and GenerateBlocks is create an element for a single post type template. So we're going to go click on elements here. We're going to add a new element, and we're going to choose block. And we'll go ahead and hit create. So we'll give this a title. We'll call it event single post template. Over here on the right hand side, we'll change the element type to content template, and we'll change this editor width to 100%. And down here, while we're at it, we'll go to the location, and we're going to choose this for events. So we'll scroll down here, we see the events headline. We want to click on event, all events. So now this template is set up to show on all of the events. So we need to go ahead and design this out. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on design on this, just enough to give you an idea of how you could go about connecting all this dynamic data. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just add kind of a hero section here. We'll give it a black background, and I'll add a headline block. We'll make it an H1, and we'll center it, and we'll make it white. And now what we want to show in here is the post. It's really going to be the event title. But of course, we don't want it to say event title on it. We want it to be whatever the title of that event is. And that's where the dynamic data comes in. So we're going to click on that and go over here to dynamic data. We're going to enable the dynamic data. Under data source, we're going to use current posts because we want it to show whichever post the viewer is looking at. And for this one, the content source is going to be the title of the post. So once we click that, any post that's using this template in this H1 area, it's going to show the title of whatever that post is dynamically. All right, underneath that, we need to add another headline, and we'll center align that. And this time we'll make it a paragraph, and we'll change the text color to kind of a light gray. Now for this one is we want the subheading here, but instead of saying subheading, we want that to be pulled in dynamically. So we're going to hit enable dynamic data. We're going to leave this data source on current post, and we're going to change the content source to post meta. The post meta is going to be our custom field. Now coming soon in the next release of GenerateBlocks, you're actually going to be able to select these fields from this dropdown. I don't have that installed. It's still in alpha testing right now, but for now, there's another way around it. And what we'll need to do is just jump back here into the back end, go to our field groups, edit this events fields field group we have so we can grab these names here of our fields. This one we're doing right now is a subheading, so I'll copy that, go over here in this post meta field. I'm going to paste in that subheading field title and hit add subheading. So now it's going to show that subheading here instead of whatever I typed in. All right, underneath that, we're going to need our image. So we'll drop in an image block. And instead of uploading an image, we want to bring that in dynamically. So we'll hit enable dynamic data. We want current post, and we want this to be post meta. Again, we need to type in the name of our field so we can jump over here, see what we named it, which is image. We'll copy that. We'll paste it in here and hit add image. And now this is going to show the image that we selected for each one of the posts. I'll go ahead and center align it here so it looks halfway decent. Now lastly, we need the event description. I'm going to put that in another container here. So we'll add another container. I have some global styles set up just to make this quick. And we'll change this container width to something more narrow. And here we're going to put in a headline block. We'll change this to paragraph. And this is going to be the event description. Now you don't need to type in whatever it is here. I'm just doing that so you know what's going to go in these spots. Again, we're going to go over here to dynamic data, enable dynamic data, the current post, and the source is going to be post meta. We got to jump over here and grab our field name, which is description. We'll paste it in here and add description. Now with all those fields set up and the display rules set, we can go ahead and publish this template. Now that that's published, let's make sure that it's working. We'll go back here to our event we set up and we'll open it up. And sure enough, you can see it's pulling in the event title, the event subheading, the image that we set, and all the text in the description. Now, I haven't set this up to be full width and all that, but like I said, we're not going to spend a lot of time on design today. This is just to give you an idea how all this functions. So what's nice about this is now when we add another event, we'll call this event 2, and we'll call this event 2 subheading. We'll go ahead and grab another image. We can grab this one, even though it's going to look funky in our template because they're different sized. And we'll put in some more website Ipsum, and we'll publish this. And we can see that now event 2, it follows the same exact template as event 1. So we can add as many posts we need and be able to control them globally. So let's say, for instance, we decide we don't like that black background on our template. We could just go back into the template, change the background maybe to a light gray. We can change the text to a darker color and maybe the sub headline to a lighter gray and hit update. And now when we open up these events, they have this new design, and that's going to be across the other one as well, which was event 1. So now you can see that this template is controlling this custom post type. Of course, we just put in a few custom fields here. You could have as many as you need, and you can also have a mix of static content in here. Like you saw on the events for the admin bar, we have this is dynamic, this is dynamic, this is dynamic, this is dynamic, this video is dynamic, but this over here on the side is not dynamic. It stays the same on every single post. Well, we could do that on ours too. We could add some kind of call to action section. So we'll just do something real quick. We'll do a black background. We'll give it a little bit of padding and we'll say, join our group. We'll center align that and make it white and update that template. Now, if we go to event 1, refresh it and scroll down, we'll see we have the join our group. If we went to event 2, we have all the dynamic data for group 2, but it still has the static data for join our group. So you can combine both static and dynamic data in here. Now, let's take a look at how you can display these in a post grid. So I'm going to go ahead and close all this out. And we're going to go in here and create a new page to show all of our events. So we'll go to page, add new, and we'll say all of our events. We'll go in here and drop in a container. Whoops. And we'll use our global styles again. And we're going to drop in a query block. So this is the query loop block by GenerateBlocks. Now it gives you some default things to start out with. We'll go ahead and just start with one of those. You can start from scratch, but for purposes of the demo, we'll get a little head start. So now it's showing you what one of these cards will look like. Now we need to connect all of our dynamic data in. So we can go here and click on the image. And over here, you can see dynamic data is already turned on, but what it's showing right now is the featured image. And we don't have featured images on our event. So we need to change this to post meta. And that field was called image. For the title, under dynamic data, this is already pulling in the title, so we're good. For the date, we're not really using a date on these, so we can change this to post meta, and we could show the subheading. I think that's what I called it. That's why it's nice to have those field groups open so you can take a look. We'll go double check before I screw any of this up. We'll go to our field groups, we'll edit them, and I called it subheading. We'll just copy it just to make sure I got it right. Subheading. Yep, got it right. Now, we probably don't want to show our full description here, so I can just delete this out of here. But what we might want is, let's say, a button. So we could go in here and add a button. We can say view event. And over on the dynamic data, we don't want to change the content source because we want them all to say view event. We want to change the link source. We want to have this linked to the single post. So we'll go ahead and link that to the single post. Now, right now, by default, the query block is just pulling in your posts, and we need to have it pull in our events. So we'll open up the list view over here and click on our query loop. And under select post type, we want to change this to events. So now you can see it's pulling in event 1 and event 2. You see some of it, but right here it's still showing meta value. That's where it's going to pull in our subheading. But for now, this should work. We'll go ahead and hit publish, and we'll go view this page on the front end. And you can see it's showing the proper featured, or the image that we used in the custom field, the title, the subheading, and if we click on the button, it takes us to the appropriate post. We can go back and click on the button for event 1, and it will take us to event 1's post. Now, this is really nice to be able to show off different things across different parts of your website. You could have a dedicated page for this, or you could show some of your different services down at the bottom in a little grid on one of your main services pages. So you could even go back here into this template that's controlling this and put a query loop just like we did on that individual page to show the other events, which is exactly what we do here on the admin bar's website. You're seeing this event and you're seeing other events here. So there's lots of great ways that you can query this information that makes it really, really valuable. Now there's one other concept I want to show you before we wrap this up, and that is the concept of custom taxonomies. We'll go ahead and go back to the back end, and under custom post type UI, we'll add a taxonomy. And in this case, what we're wanting to do is create a system to show and hide events based on a condition. This is exactly what I do on the admin bar's website, where you can see upcoming events and past events. So we'll duplicate this here. Now there's all kinds of reasons you might create a taxonomy, and this is kind of a fringe one, but it's something that I've gotten a lot of use out of. So we'll call this schedules. And actually we'll do it singular. Here in the plural, we'll call it schedules. And we'll call it schedule for singular. And we're going to attach this taxonomy to the events post type. Now, one other thing I want to change in here is this hierarchical. I want to change that to true. So we have the little checkboxes like categories have, not the tag system. And we'll scroll down here and hit add taxonomy. Now under our events, we see the schedules category. So what we need to do is create some categories in here. So one, we could say past, and one we could say future. Okay, now that those are set up here, we need to edit our events to give them one or the other of these new taxonomies. So we'll go to all events, and let's close all this down so we have less clutter. We'll edit event 2 and event 1. We'll say event number 2 is a future show, future event, and we'll say event number 1 is a past event. So what's nice about this, go ahead and close these out. We can go to our pages, here, pages, all pages. We had created this page for all of our events. Well, now we could create a page that just says upcoming events. And in here, we can drop a query loop. In fact, let's just go ahead and save this page. We're going to need it, but I'm going to go copy and paste the query loop we already made. So we'll go to all of our events and we'll copy this entire section, go back to our pages and go to our upcoming events and paste that in here. Now the change we're going to want to make is to only query the future events. So here in our query loop block, we'll go over here to the query parameters and we're going to add a parameter. And what we're going to say is we want to query this by taxonomies. The taxonomy is going to be schedules, and we only want to show future events because that's our upcoming events. So now if we hit update and go look at this on the front end, it's only going to show the events that are upcoming. Now, of course, we could do the same thing with past events, or you could have like we do on the admin bars website, which is going to be a little hard to tell today because they're all past events. We have a little toggle here that will show upcoming events, past events, or all events. So we've done this so people can see that. Of course, we don't have any upcoming events right now, so it's not showing anything, but in theory, this would show us all the upcoming events. This would show us all the past events. So you can do that on individual pages, or you might want to just show certain events on certain parts of the website. This also comes in really handy if you're doing something like testimonials. If you created a custom post type for testimonials and had some fields like the testimonial text, the author, the bio image, you could create a custom taxonomy for the type of testimonial. Let's say you had customer service testimonials and product testimonials. Well, on your product pages, you could just query in all the product testimonials. And on your About Us page, you could have all the customer service testimonials. So there's all kinds of ways you can do this. Now, I think we're just scratching the surface on everything you can do with custom fields and custom post types in this video. But that's exactly what I wanted to do, is just get the ball rolling for you. I think once you realize this concept and how easy it is to do, you're going to be like me and want to use it on every website possible. Anytime I can substitute a bunch of pages for one single custom post type and create that all with a template, that's definitely the route I'd rather go. Hopefully this gets you started on that journey, and if you have any questions, I would love to help out. Just reach out to me or leave a comment down below.